Hey, welcome back. Let's do a very quick overview of one bit of code in the forum. Uh, Somebody else, I think Scott posted this thing about a mapping idea about a character moving through a map. Now, that's all cool, and this conversation has come up a bunch of times over the years, and I thought, well, didn't I make something like this before? And I did, but I couldn't find it on the boards because it was called something weird. I put some extra keywords in that post now to try and find it. This was made in response to a conversation with Mick. Probably this is almost 10 years old, or it is 10 years old really. He was making a treasure trove house hunter game. One of the problems with these types of games, so I'll run the example for us. We're capturing, so we're getting a bit rough. I'm controlling the red dot here. And what this code does is that because the character and the walkways are the same size, this adds a bit of logic around the movement to translate the character to move into a walkway. So if I'm in a walkway here and I push down, nothing happens. If I get near the walkway and I push down, we move automatically down through the walk. We move across and then down. Same goes to these ones here. What that's helping us do really is the same happens left and right too. It's a bit harder in these ones here because I think the map and the walkways are about the same size. So it makes it a little bit easier to navigate through the maze. And the key point here is we don't want the player to get caught on fiddly entryways. We want the player to sort of move through as easy as they possibly can. So I've added acceleration here as well, just to demonstrate the point a bit more. So the code itself, there's a bit of an explanation here about how this can be solved. I'm not saying this is a great example or an approach at all. I'm saying that it's worth considering translating the player's input into motion better when you have multiple walkways. Here's the case down here. So this is our map, of course. P represents our player. If we're standing here and we want to move up, what happens in a lot of kind of classic 8-bit era games, 16-bit era games, is that you had to be perfectly below the entryway before you could move through that hallway. If you imagine these are hallways, the stuff here and up and down here, you had to be perfectly here. You couldn't be partially near the entryway. If you were and pressing up to walk through that way, you would get stuck. And in a fast sort of, any kind of fast game where you need to evade any characters that are following you, that doesn't really work. That's where this kind of idea here comes into it. So what it does is if I'm standing here and I push up, it looks at the blocks above me for an open space. If it finds an open space, it goes, okay, you want to go up, but there's a blockage above you directly. But what we could do is we could move you across towards this entryway to align you to this point and then move you up. So you're still tracking on the same rigid pathway. This hallway here, you're still moving effectively on the tiles. You're never really off these tiles unless you're in these positions here, in the middle points there. That's what I'm saying. The same would happen if the player was up here, the player's here, for example, and I push to move left or right. Normally that the player would be stuck in that position and couldn't move because it has to be so perfect with it. But in this case, it will move the player down to this block and then starts motion down here. So it will slide past those entryways. Another way that you could do it as well, actually, is where these junction points are. We'll run the program again, actually. See where these junction points are. I'll move to any one of these junctions. You could have a little zone, collision zone around here that has the known exits for this location, like a little linked list or wherever it's going to be. So when you enter the zone here, it could just translate your motion based on what exits there are. The same idea, but we're not looking at map tiles, for example. So you could do the same thing using vectors purely. And that would probably allow for things like, here everything's orthogonal. So you've got walls at 90 degrees. I think we're a bit off there actually. Oh no. So I can stand there one block above, I can push down and he moves across and down, which is what we want. But we might want probably 2 tiles is probably better actually for this kind of scale. So you can be pretty wishy-washy about your positioning around these openings here, but you can still get a nice flow, a fast motion through that world. Nothing worse than playing a game and you get stuck within the hallways of it. It's very frustrating. If you use vectors and not a map, you can have things like walls, corridors that went at 45-degree angles, for example, or even loop to loops or something. That's a conversation for another day, but the principle would be the same. You'd have sort of these marker points, like a little circle here, a little radius here, and as the player moves into that radius, it goes, okay, from this point here, you're allowed to move in 3 different directions, to the right, to the left, and down, and it looks at how the player is moving, what input they're giving, and then translates it best it can for those 3 scenarios. I mean, if you have to pre-calculate them, who cares? Make a table or whatever. I mean, who cares? But that's this little idea here. I'm not saying it's fantastic, but still needs a bit of work. It's just knocked together one night. Back to where we started. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, head across the boards and it's up here for you. There's a bit of a spiel about what I was thinking at the time. When was this made? 2011. A long time ago. The background picture is from Mick actually. Got VSync enabled. Camera CLS. So it's just drawing the scene here with a traditional sort of depth sorting approach and just letting the camera draw the items itself. Draw a sprite, interpolate from the real position just to smooth out the fill. Okay, focus. Right, so we're focusing the camera on the player in this example. We don't need to actually. We can just position this, here for example, and run again. So the camera would just sit in the one location. Quick look at the code. So I've got this update player. I've got the direction we want to move in, and this is what input keys were held down. So grabbing the left right pair. The up down pair, then the left right pair separately. Looking at having a select statement here going, if we're just moving up, then we'll check the tile above us and allow us to move up. If it's more complicated than that, then we need to look at what tiles are above us and then make a decision about should we move left first or right first or not do anything. Which I suspect what this function here is doing. It's got a bunch of logic in here. So check for vertical change of direction. So this is called when we want to move, when the player is requesting our character to move up or down. We're passing it through this logic here going, what's the best case scenario for us? Off the top of my head now, I have no idea. I have no idea. Such a long time ago. But the premise is actually sound, and some of the best classic games use this same approach. They will move you marginally in whether it's left and right or up and down, to move you onto ladders and off ladders. So just that when you're traversing the environment, it feels like you're flowing through the environment, not getting stuck on things that are frustrating. Probably one of the most successful games of the 80s in particular is the Mario games, and Sonic, of course, as well. But collision is so imperative to those games to get that, to make it feel right for the player, so you're not frustrated that your controls aren't doing what you wanted, or so it always feels like you're controlling the character and the game is not controlling you. But all those classic games will have logic in there that's making sure the player or the characters stay within a certain tolerance of when they're walking on a nice horizontal strip of land, for example, like walking on this comet here, for example, if that was a runway or something. And then once you go to move up a ladder or something else, or follow some other intricate piece of, or climb a wall, or jump and catch something, that logic has to be pretty well worked out to make sure that when the maps are made, there's no sticky points for the player, and the player doesn't get frustrated with just the sheer input. So obviously this has map data. These are the tiles, and we're running through the data statements here and grabbing each string, and then walking across the string and grabbing the character and subtracting the ASCII value of 0 from it, which will, if this is ASCII 0 here, for example, and you subtract ASCII 0 from it, this gives you an integer of 0. So it's just a way of converting single digit characters into a numeric value for use with our map in this case. You don't have to use a map, you can use your own mapping system if you want. I mean, it doesn't matter. There is actually a sliding collision system built into PlayBASIC. I should add by now. If I look up here, head down here to maps. Now, depending on what version you're using, the help files will be quite different. If you're using the old Learning Edition, you probably find there's a bunch of stuff that you're missing. Check map impact. Yeah. This actually is a function for doing the same kind of idea, moving a character through a block environment that has sliding collision. Something along the lines of a Mario game. It's used in most of those examples on the forum, or if you're an Amiga follower, Gianna Sisters, that kind of game. So we give it our starting location, and we give it our potential moving location, what the map is we want to collide with, and the area that this character is, the collidable area that our character takes up, and it just computes a value, our new position based on that motion within the constraints of the map. Which is another way of doing the same thing. Anyway, thanks for watching, and of course this is all up in the forums. This is old code. Go and dig it up. I probably should have called it something better than four-way map movement test. It's not perfect, needs a bit more work, but the principal idea is helping control the character within a tight space to make sure that motion feels nice and comfortable for the player. Give it a go. See what you come up with, and if you post something better, post your code in the forum, etc., so others can learn. Thank you. See you later. Bye.